Okay, so in every cemetery, there's always that one individual that sticks out. There's always that one individual that you came to see. And in this cemetery right here, it's on the corner of Jefferson Street and 15th Avenue in downtown Phoenix, in between modern-day government buildings, sits Pioneer and Military Memorial Park. Pioneer and Military Memorial Park is comprised of 7 historic cemeteries, which were in use between 1884 and 1914. After the city of Phoenix was incorporated, they purchased this area that was known as block number 32. So all of these cemeteries are considered block number 32. The cemetery was abandoned in 1914, but the city of Phoenix took it over in 1950 and redid the whole thing. All right, so we're out here at this cemetery and they gave us a map that's really not that great. And it lists all the famous people of note that are buried in this cemetery, but we're having a really hard time following the directions of this. So we're gonna go inside and ask them what we're doing wrong here. And in this section of the cemetery, all the military veterans are here. From the Mexican War to the Civil War to the Indian Campaign to the Spanish-American War, they're all in this section of the cemetery. That's the Porter section. This is the grave of Clarence Proctor. He was in the Spanish-American War that broke out in early 1898. He was in the 10th U.S. Cavalry. Grave marker of Major Edward Schwartz, a Civil War veteran who served in the New York Cavalry. Grave of Samuel Sneed. He was in the Mexican War, and he also made a small fortune in the saloons around Phoenix, Arizona. Okay, so on that paper, you'll get like the notables. They'll call the notables on that paper. When you go around, they're supposed to be numbered correctly, but they're not. But just, you know, go through and look at each individual one, because here is another 10th Cavalry marker right here. So another individual that was in the Buffalo Soldiers right here. I would have passed that right up. So take your time as you're walking through here to look at all of these grave markers. You got a lot of history in this section of the cemetery. Of course, you have a lot of history throughout this whole cemetery, and the next spot that we're going to head to is actually across the street. And when you're driving by on Jefferson, you can see this cemetery, but you only see the front part. You don't realize how can it possibly be 7 separate cemeteries, but when you come into the cemetery, there's one on the other side of the street, and it's just as big as this side of the street. And the individual that works here actually just went over there and opened it up for us. So okay, so in every cemetery, there's always that one individual that sticks out. There's always that one individual that you came to see. And in this cemetery right here, it's Jacob Waltz. He's buried in this cemetery. He's all the way across the street and all the way back to your right. So if you're walking into the cemetery, the main cemetery, into the building, when you come across the street, you're going to walk straight back as far as you can go, all the way to the right, and it's grave marker number 29 back here, and it's Jacob Waltz. And I'm just going to throw this in here because I just find it interesting. I would think everybody knows who Jacob Waltz is, especially if you say the Lost Dutchman. But my buddy right here, he's not from here. Kevin, he just moved here. He's retiring here. He deserves it. And we were talking about that, and he's like, so who is this Lost Dutchman guy? And I just found that quite amusing because I thought he was just joking around. But we're going to say it on camera here. I'm going to get it on camera. Did you know who the Lost Dutchman was?
No, I did not.
He did not. It's Jacob Waltz, the man, the legend says, discovered a gold mine in the Superstition Mountains and kept the location secret. Jacob the Lost Dutchman Waltz was born in Germany in 1808. He immigrated to the United States in the 1840s and became a naturalized citizen in 1861. By 1864, Waltz was prospecting in Arizona and is reputed to have found gold deposits near the Superstition Mountain, known as the legendary Lost Dutchman Mine. Now I have to go back. I do not know the history of how they laid this graveyard out, but this must be the oldest, definitely the oldest part of this graveyard, because most of the markers that they have along here are just little tiny plaques that are in the ground. It's all the way towards the back, and that would seem like the way that they would do it from a cemetery is go from the back to the front. So again, if you come out here, he's all the way in the back. Jacob Waltz, the Lost Dutchman. This guy here was one of the 4 original locators of the Gunsight Mine. I'm gonna have to check that out. That seems to be very important because they got him listed on this piece of paper. But the Gunsight Mine, his name is Josiah L. Ward. So in this section over here, we have the Chinese pioneers of Arizona, of the Phoenix area. So let's go check that out. Okay, this is the grave of Darrell Dupa. Darrell Dupa is accredited for naming the city of Phoenix, Phoenix, and the city of Tempe, Tempe. This is a grave marker of Wayne Davis. He lived from 1877 to 1914, but he was an Arizona Ranger from 1906 to 1908. It's Robert Plumridge. He was the member of the famous California column that helped protect Arizona during the Civil War. We have Robert E. Lee Brown. And it says here about Robert E. Lee Brown, the New York Times described Brown, who accumulated immense fortune in mining enterprise, as one of the best equipped mining engineers in the world. Alright, thanks for joining me for this episode of the Arizona Timeless Tours. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I would ask that you would hit that subscribe button. It would be greatly appreciated.